let's go ahead and get started on 10.3. We're doing ellipses, and then 10.4, hyperbolas today. Go back to the beginning of the chapter 10 handouts real quickly. And here we go. So just look at your equations for your ellipses. So notice here you've got x minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. So it's just like the equation of a circle, except it's got a denominator that's not 1. Okay, so that's how you can tell for the ellipse. Now this is going to be for a horizontal ellipse. The x will come first because the x is the horizontal axis. In a vertical ellipse, the y minus k part will come first. Okay, so y minus k squared over a squared, so it's still over a squared because y-axis is the vertical axis. So that tells you the vertical axis is what we call the major axis. So whichever axis is bigger, that's the major axis. They're not going to be the same because it's not a circle. If they were the same, it would be a circle. When the center of the ellipse is 0, 0, there's no h and k. So it would just be x squared over a squared, y squared over b squared, or y squared over a squared, x squared over b squared. So what you're going to look for is what comes first in the equation, x or y. Okay, that'll tell you the axis of the ellipse, and then you'll look for the center. And then the hyperbola is similar. The equation is the same, except there's a minus sign. Okay, so we'll look at that when we get to 10.4 a little bit more, but the equation is very similar, except the minus sign. Okay, so go back to 10.3. Okay, so we have the ellipse. It is like an oval. Okay, it's a set of all points on a plane. The distance is from these two fixed points, which are the foci, or the focus. Well, I guess you could focus, says foci of the ellipse. So those are going to be, so here's the center of your ellipse, right here. Okay, the foci are two equidistant points from the center of the ellipse. They are going to lie on the major axis. Okay, so they will go left and right if your ellipse starts with an X. They'll go up and down if the ellipse starts with a Y. So if we have one that looks like this, here's your center, your foci would be vertical in this case. Okay, where C, the foci, is the distance from the center to the foci. Let's see here, the line, okay, yeah, that's your major axis, so vertical or horizontal here. The minor axis would be the opposite axis. Okay, so this case would be vertical. And then your equations. So these first two equations are given to you with no h and k. So we're going to first look at this where the center is 0, 0. Okay, so you have x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared. This is a horizontal because you start with an x. That's a horizontal axis. Okay, so the ellipse has a major axis that's horizontal, like this. And, well, we should probably switch this one around here. And you can actually determine the x, if it's over a or b, by our formula here. But let's just go here where you got y squared over a squared. Okay, so that's going to be a vertical axis ellipse. Okay, so A and B do have a significance here, and here's the significance. So they're going to be related with this equation here, which looks really similar to the Pythagorean theorem. except it's minus. So it's c squared equals a squared minus b squared. Okay, and a is going to be bigger than b, always. Okay, so in general, let's say, for example, if it happens to be written opposite ways, with the a squared or the y second, wherever the larger number is, that's the axis. So wherever a is in the denominator, that's your axis. And as always, it makes a lot more sense when we do examples. So let's do some examples. Actually, I have an example of this before we get to this. So let me come back here with these guys here. Okay, so let's say, for example, we have the equation x squared over 16 plus y squared over 9 equals 1. Okay, so taking a look at this, notice a few things. The x comes first. The larger number is also underneath the x. So that is my a squared. This is my b squared. Okay, my center I know is at 0, 0 because I don't have an x minus h or k, so I know my center is at 0, 0. Okay, and I also know that this is, because the a squared is under x, I know that this is a horizontal. Oh, I can't spell. Horizontal. There we go. Ellipse. So I know that I have a center at 0, 0, so let's call this 0, 0 right here. Okay, and then my a is going to be a distance from 0, 0. So if this a squared is 16, then I know that a equals the square root of 16, which is 4. So I know that my foci are going to lie on the horizontal axis, 4 to the left, so at negative 4, 0, and 4 to the right, at positive 4, 0. Sorry, that's my A, not my C. So I know those are the edges of my ellipse. Okay, those points are still on there. Okay, then my B, okay, if B squared is 9, then what's B going to be? Okay, so then that is going to be the minor axis, which is going to be underneath the Y. So that's up and down. So up 3. So we'll call this 3, 0. And then down 3. Sorry, 0, 3. And then down 3, 0, negative 3. Okay, so I can draw the ellipse without having the focus. It's really bad drawing, but I can still generally find the points here. That looks more like a circle than an ellipse, but there it is. Okay, now if I want to find this focus, then I use c squared equals a squared minus b squared. Okay, so I have that c squared equals a squared 16 minus b squared 9. So c squared is going to equal 7, which means c is going to be the square root of 7, which is roughly 2.6. Okay, so 2.6 to the left of my foci on the horizontal axis, 2.6 to the right. Those are going to be my foci here. So that's plus or minus square root of 7. I'm sorry about the room here. There's not a lot of room. That would be the points of my foci. Let's do one where we actually have room with the graph. Okay, so we have an equation in this form. So it's not telling you that it's an ellipse. So you will get some of that as you go through. You have to determine it. So best way here, okay, first of all, it's got a plus in between. So it's either a circle or an ellipse. And then with the numbers in front, okay, if I set it equal to 1, I'll have a denominator. The denominator means that it's the ellipse and not the circle. Okay, so first thing I want to do here is I want to set this equal to 1, so I'm going to divide everything by 36. So that's going to give me, let's see, x squared over 9 plus y squared over 4 equals 1. Okay, so first thing I want to do is set the equation equal to 1. Okay, then your center, 0, 0. Okay, so my center here is going to be 0, 0. Okay, then you want to find A and B. Okay, so A is going to be which one here? 9. Why? It's bigger, yeah, and it's under the x. Okay, so A is bigger than B, so 9 is going to be A squared, which means A is 3. B squared is going to be 4, which means B is 2. Okay, which means these are my axes. So is this a horizontal or a vertical? Horizontal, because of the x. Okay, so that means I'm going to go left, 1, 2, 3, right, 1, 2, 3, and then up and down 2. Okay, then we want to find C. So we have C squared equals A squared minus B squared. So C squared equals 9 minus 4. Remember, you want to square that. So it's going to be 5, which means C is going to be square root of 5. So the coordinates of my foci are going to be plus or minus the square root of 5. And thankfully, it's next to 0, so don't have to do a whole lot of counting there, but it's roughly 2.2. Okay, so my foci are going to be 2.2, about right here. That's too far over. 2, and right here. So here's what my circle will look like, or sorry, my ellipse. These are the coordinates of your foci. So that is plus or minus square root of 5, 0. And then the domain and range. Okay, so the domain would be from -3 to +3. And then the range would be from -2 to +2. Okay. Next one doesn't give us as much information here. So this is when your equation is given. Now we're given incomplete information, so we have to use the graph to help us. So we have to find the equation of an ellipse having a center at the origin. Okay, so we know right there. Foci at 0 plus or minus 3. So my foci, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 0, negative 1, 2, 3. And a major axis length of 8 units. Okay, which means the major axis from top to bottom or left to right is 8 units. Now, if my foci are at these points here, what kind of ellipse is this? Vertical. Good. So because the foci are on the vertical axis, then we have a y major axis. Okay, which means that a is going to be underneath the y. So we can say y squared under a squared plus x squared under b squared equals 1. Okay, now we know that the length of the major axis is 8, which means from the top to the bottom, it's 8. So if I take, oh, that's not a very good vertical line at all. Okay, this line from here to here, that's 8 divided by 2. What would it be on either end? 4. So this would be 4, and then that would be negative 4 to have a length of 4. So that means I would have a point here of, what would that be? That would be 0, positive 4, and then a point here at 0, negative 4. And 4 is going to give us our A value because it's on the major axis. Okay, so we get 4 equals A. And we have C, our foci, was given to us as 3. So we can use C squared equals A squared minus B, plus B squared to give us our B value. And then we can write our equation. So you have C squared is 3, so it's going to be 9. A is 4, so A squared will be 16. It's minus B squared. Sorry. I was looking at that and saying that's not going to work because that would be a negative 7. A squared minus B squared. Okay, so then we would subtract the 16. That would be a negative 7. Make those both positive. We get that B squared is 7, so B is the square root of 7. Okay, if I want to graph that, that was roughly 2.6 or something. So maybe like right here and right here. If you wanted to get a nice little picture of what that looks like. Okay, but we are asked for the equation. So you're just putting the a squared and the b squared underneath. So you would do y squared under a squared, so 16, plus x squared under b squared, which would be 7, equals 1. Okay, or you can write that x squared over 7 plus y squared over 16. Doesn't matter which way. Okay. Now let's take a look when we have a center not at 0, 0. So the only thing that changes is h and k is coming in. Okay, so, and it looks like from here on we're going to keep x first. So we're going to look for where the a value is. H and k will give you your new center. H will always be with x, k will always be with y. It's the only thing that's changing here. Okay, so if I take a look at this equation, and I want to graph it, okay, and maybe we'll find the foci too. We're going to first find the center. Okay, so the center is going to be, h would be positive 2, k would be negative 1. So 2, negative 1. So here's my center. Okay, then we're going to identify A and B. Okay, well, which one is A and which one is B? 16 is A. The bigger number is A, so A squared is 16, which means A is 4. B squared is 9, which means B is 3. What is my major axis? Y. The 16 is underneath the Y. So that means I'm going up and down 4. And when I do up and down 4, it's from the center this time. So I'm going to go to this point here on my center, and I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to give me the point 2, 3. And I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to give me 2, -5. And then my B, I'm going to go left and right 3. So I'm going to go left 1, 2, 3. So that's going to give me -1, -1. And then right 3, 1, 2, 3. So 5, -1. Okay, so this is my drawing. Yeah, that's better. That's my drawing of my ellipse right here. And then I don't think we were really asked a whole lot else, but let's go ahead and find our C. So you have C squared equals A squared minus B squared. So A squared is 16, B squared is 9. So that's going to be 7. So C squared is 7, which means C is plus or minus the square root of 7. Now this is going to be harder to graph because it's not a 0, 0 center. But if we really wanted to do that, just what's that? Just do 2.6. That should be fine. So 2.6. So there I'd go up 1, 2.6, maybe like right there. Down 1, 2.6, right there. But really, the way that you would write this, so if you had to type this in, what you would do is you would take that would be on the y value, right? Because it's y-axis. So take the center, 2, -1, and do this. 2, and then it would be -1 plus the square root of 7. And then it would be 2, -1 minus the square root of 7. That would give you the exact values there. Okay. Good? Good on that? All right. So now, remember with the circles what we did where we converted them? We're going to do the same thing here. Okay, biggest difference with these, to tell from the circle, there's numbers in front of the x and the y in this case. Okay, so it's a very similar process, not exactly the same, but let's go through with what we did for the circle. You're going to set up to complete the square. So you would take your x's and group them together. So you've got 4x squared minus 16x. Then you have a 9y squared, positive, plus 54y. And then take that 61 and move it over here, -61. Okay, now what you want to do is in your groupings, take a GCF out. Okay, so kind of separate them like that. You can take a GCF of 4 out of here. So that would be an x squared minus 4x. And you could take a 9 out of here, which would be y squared plus 6y. We don't need to do anything to the other side yet because I didn't actually add or subtract anything to the other side. Now we do the complete the square step. Okay, so now you take this b value, divide by 2. So 4 divided by 2 squared would be 2 squared, so that'd be 4. So I'm going to add 4 here. Now, when you add it to the other side, this is the important part that's different. Because you have the GCF, you've got to do 4 times the GCF. So it's plus 4 times 4. Okay, and then same thing here. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, squared is 9. So that's plus 9. So plus 9 times 9. Okay, because you've got this times 9 right here. Okay, so then we want to factor this. So you've got 4, and then what is that? X minus 2 squared. What's this factor to? Y squared plus 6y plus 9. Y plus 3. And then you've got negative 61 plus 16 plus 81. $36. Okay, then it's an ellipse, so you set it equal to 1. Okay, so we're writing it in standard form. It's got to be set equal to 1. So then set equal to 1 by dividing by 36. Okay, so 4 over 36 gives you 1/9. So that would be x minus 2 over 9. Then 9 over 36 would give you 1/4. So y plus 3 over 4. And 36 over 36 is 1. Sorry, squared. And that is your equation of your ellipse. And then are we graphing? Yeah, we're going to graph. So tell me this, where's the center? To -3. Is it, what is the major axis? Horizontal, so x, which means my a squared is 9, making a 3. B squared is 4, making B 2. Okay, so if I graph this, we've got, let's see, 2, -1, 2, 3, right there. So then A, it's horizontal, so I'm going to go left and right 3. So left 1, 2, 3. So that looks like that's the point -1, -3. And it disappeared on me. There it is. And right 1, 2, 3. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -3. And then my minor axis 2, so up and down 2, 1, 2, so 2, -1, and 1, 2, 2, -5. I know it didn't ask for the foci, but if it did, it would be c squared equals a squared minus b squared. So it would be 9 minus 4, which would give us 5. So c would be square root of 5. And if I wanted the points for that, we would add that to the x value because it's horizontal. So it would be 2 plus square root of 5, comma, -3, and then 2 minus square root of 5, -3. Okay, so try some practice. 5 problems, and then we will go over them. Okay, so the first one, we're given the foci and we want the coordinates at the center. So what I would do is I would graph it and I'd count. Okay, so you've got, let's see, -4, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I lost it. Let me get a thicker pen so it'll actually do this for me. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so right there. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we want the center. So if those are the foci, the center is going to be right in between that. So how many are in between? 14. Yeah, -4 minus 10, or 10 minus -4, you would get 14 as the difference, which divided by 2 would be 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's your middle point right there. And then that is 3, 4. Okay, for me, it's much easier to do visually, but if you wanted to do it algebraically, you would look at this and say, okay, the vertical values, the y values are the same, which means it's vertical. Which means it's horizontal. Okay, since these are the same, so you find the difference. So -4, there we go, -4 minus 10 would give you -14. Divide by 2 gives you -7. The signs aren't really going to matter. And then you say, okay, so I'm just going to add the 7 to that. So I would just, or subtract it from the 10. So 10 minus 7 gives you 3, or -4 plus, okay, it should be a 4. -4 plus 7 also gives you 3. So that gives you the x value, and then the y value is the same. So that's the way you could do it algebraically. I like to visualize it. But that's all you're doing for that point there. Let's see, next one. So we want to find the vertices and the foci and graph it. So first thing I want to do, it's not set equal to 1. So I'm going to take this and set it equal to 1. Okay, so that's going to be x squared over 1 plus y squared over 9 equals 1. You might see problems on the homework that just have the x squared by itself. I always like to put it over a 1, just to help me with it, having it in that same form. Okay. What do we want? We want the vertices and the foci, and we want to graph it. So where's the center? Yeah, the center's at 0, 0. So we got the center. And is this going to be a major axis vertical or horizontal? Vertical, yeah, because the 9 is under the y. So this is a y major axis, which means this is your a squared, which means a equals 3. So I'm graphing it. So I've got 1, 2, 3 up, 1, 2, 3 down. Let's zoom out a little bit. There we go. Okay, so my vertices, my first vertices are these points here, which are 3, 0 and -3, 0. Okay, my 1, that's going to be my b squared, which means b is just 1. So the square root of 1 is just 1. So 1 to the left, 1 to the right. So I've got -1, 0, and 1, 0. And these guys, my bad, 0, 3, 0, -3. Okay, there we go. So those are all your vertices. Okay, and then the foci, c squared equals a squared minus b squared. So a squared would be 9, b squared would be 1. So c squared is going to be 8, which means c is going to be the square root of 8. Okay, so in that we would just do, it's vertical. So square root of 8 is, what is that, 2 point, what is it? 2.8. Okay, so 1, 2 point, it's going to be like right here and right here. But you're just giving the points. So it would just be 0 positive square root of 8 and 0 negative square root of 8. Biggest thing to look for, like on the test perhaps, or on a quiz, would be not getting the x and the y's mixed up like I just did when I was first graphing it. Okay, so where are the foci? Which axis are they on? And I can't even draw that one, it's so thin. Here. There you go. Looks like that. And then did we answer everything for that one? Yes. Okay, next problem. So let's see, we have a focus and we have vertices. So you have a focus at 0, 8. So let's find that point. Let me get a pen to draw these. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I've got a 0, 10 and a 0, negative 10. Okay, so if I have a foci here at 0, 8, I've also got one at 0, negative 8, which means my center is 0, 0. And my major axis is going to be what? Y. My major axis is Y, because the foci are on the same axis as your major axis. Okay, which means I'm doing this equation here, x squared over b squared plus y squared over a squared equals 1. I have that a is 10. Okay, so this 10 equals a. I have that c is 8, because it gives me the 8 here. So I need to find b. So c squared equals a squared minus b squared. So let's see, c squared, that's 64. And then 10 squared is 100. So I believe that is what, 36? Yeah. So negative 36 equals negative b squared. There's your b squared, which means your b is 6. Okay, but we just want to write the equation here, so we need the b squared. So you go x squared over b squared would be 36. Y squared over a squared, y squared here would be 10 squared, 100 equals 1. Okay, next problem. All right, so we've got to convert this to our correct form here. So let's go ahead and start doing that. We've got x squared minus 2x. We've got a plus 4y squared plus 8y. I'm going to take that plus 1 and move it over as negative 1. There's nothing in front of the x squared, so I can leave it like that. So I'm just going to bring it down one level. But here I can take a GCF of 4 out. So I'm going to go 4, and that's going to be y squared plus 2y. Okay, so then I'll do my complete the square. So I want negative 2 divided by 2, which is negative 1. Squared is positive 1, so 1. So plus 1, and then I add it to this side. And then on this side, this is also 1. 2 divided by 2 squared would give us 1. And then here, when I add it to the other side, I do plus 1 times my GCF 4. Okay, then factor x squared minus 2x plus 1 gives us x minus 1 squared. And then here I get a 4, and then y plus 1 squared. And then here I have negative 1 plus 1, which is 0, plus 4. Okay, then set it equal to 1. So divide by 4. So then we get the equation x minus 1 squared over 4 plus y plus 1 squared over 1 equals 1. Okay, and we want the foci. the vertices, so we're going to have to graph it. Okay, so the center of this graph is going to be 1, -1. So 1, -1 is going to be right here. All right, is it horizontal or vertical? Horizontal, yeah, x-axis. Okay, so my a squared equals 4, which means a equals 2. My b squared is going to equal 1, which gives my b a 1. Okay, so to get my vertices, I would count horizontally, left and right 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. So that looks like -1, 1, and 3, 1. Sorry, -1, -1, 3, -1. There we go. Okay, those are my major axis vertices. And then my minor axis vertices go up and down 1. So there you're getting a 1, 0, and 1, -2. So here's our ellipse. This is a small one. And then we want the foci. So we'll do c squared. A squared is 4. B squared is 1. So c squared is going to equal 3, which means c is plus or minus the square root of 3. We can find that it's like 1 point something. Where's my mouse? So 1.7, if you want to put it on the graph. So maybe like here and here. But really what we would want to do is you would say, okay, that is, look at the horizontal axis. So it's 1 minus the square root of 3. And then -1. And then 1 plus the square root of 3, -1. Those would be the foci. Is everything there? And then we have one more. Okay, so we're given our foci and then the major axis length. So let's see here. You've got -2, 3. So -2, 1, 2, 3. And -2, -1. So that's telling me right there that's vertical. Okay, so that's going to be a y. So I'm just going to go ahead and, well, the center is not going to be 0, 0. So I'm not going to write the equation yet. Actually, I'll go ahead and do that. So x minus h squared, that's going to be b squared plus y minus k squared, and then that's going to be a squared equals 1. Okay, and then the major axis length is 6. So, well, we got to find the center first before we can put that major axis on there. So let's see. We've got these 2 points here. Where's that center? Right here? That looks good, right? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 divided by 2 is 2. So center is right here at the point -2, 1. Okay, so there's my h and my k. Now that I know that the major axis is 6, I can do 3 up, 3 down for my vertices. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's going to give me right here a length of 6. Okay, which basically is telling me that the distance from my center to my vertice is 3. So my A equals 3. My C, that's 2 from the center, so my C equals 2. So then to write the equation, I need to find B. So C squared equals A squared minus B squared. We'll go C is 2, so 4, and then 9 minus B squared. So it looks like that's -5. So that's going to be positive. So b squared is going to be 5. B is going to be square root of 5. But I just want the equation. So I'll input all of this information. So I've got x minus my h, which is -2. So that'll be +2 squared over b squared, which b squared is just 5, plus y minus k. So my k is 1 squared over a squared. A is 3. 3 squared is 9. And that's set equal to 1. All right. Any questions on that? Takes practice and use the graphs. That's my advice for that.